Hi and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're enjoying these videos. This one will be the 7th video on designing a PRS guitar in Fusion 360. In this video I'm going to cover the neck joint, joining the neck to the body, and also putting in a truss rod slot. So let's get started. So in the previous video we did these body cuts, this neck access cut here, and our belly cut on the bottom side. So the final cut in the body will be where the neck joins the body. But before doing so, I noticed one thing on my guitar. I noticed that the neck is slightly raised above the top of the body, and it's also slightly pitched downhill. So I want to go ahead and do those two fixes, before we cut this neck joint. The other thing is, since we're going to be angling this neck, and I put the scale in its own component, unless I do the same rotation on that scale, it's not going to be in the same plane as the neck. So I think I'm also going to project a scale onto the neck before we do the rotation. So let's go ahead and do that first. So I'm going to go to the scale component, and let's go ahead and make those sketches visible. Basically I want the scale sketch visible. Okay, so now I'm going to activate my neck, and I'm going to create a sketch on the top of the neck. So I'll go to create sketch, click on the top of the neck, and now I want to project all of these fret markers, fret lines, into that sketch. So I'll hit P for project, and I'll start clicking on those. One thing that's kind of odd in Fusion is you can't do a surround selection while you're in project. Not quite sure why that is, but that would be a convenient feature to have here. So I've got to be careful and click on all of these fret slots. See if I can do it quickly. And I mistakenly clicked on this, so I'm going to control click to unselect it. Okay, so that I believe is the 24th fret. And we've also got the nut marker here. And while I'm in here, I'm going to also get this center line, which may come in handy at some point. So I've got all those fret markers or fret slots selected, so I'm going to finish my project. And now let's open up neck. And so this is the sketch that I just created. So I'm going to finish that sketch and then go ahead and name this scale. So really there's no difference between that and the scale component sketch. But when I rotate the neck, this sketch is going to come along with it. So I'll hide that scale, and I think in retrospect I would have put the scale as a sketch inside the neck next time doing this, if the neck needs to be pitched down like this does. Okay, so I want to raise this component up, and then I also want to rotate it down, and I think I want to do the rotation basically where the neck intersects the body. So I'm going to hide the scale sketch, and so I need a line to do that rotation on. So if we look straight at the top, we can get an outline and try to get just a horizontal line here in a sketch. So let's go ahead and start the sketch. I'll put it on the neck. Let's rotate back to where we were looking. And I'm just going to hit L for line and make sure that this is horizontal. And I'll also make it construction just to show that we're not going to really draw anything with it or extrude anything. And so I eventually want to move this down here to where where the neck intersects with the body. So let's go to the body and let's go to, I'm sorry, we want to go to the body component. And inside its sketches, there is an outline. So I'm going to turn the sketches on and the outline on, and now do another project. So I'm going to get this line and this line, project that into my sketch. So now I want to move this line down to this point. So I think what I'm going to do is do a midpoint, click on this line, and click on this point. And so that's going to be our axis of rotation. So I'll finish the sketch and then I'll name it. I'm just going to call this axis. Well, I'll call it rotation axis. Okay. Let's close the body up here. All right. And so 2 things we want to do. We want to raise this up, and I calculate about a 1/16 of an inch, and then we want to angle it down. So I'm going to do a M for move and come over here and select components. And the cool thing now is I have this triad that I can position somewhere, and that's very handy because that's going to allow us to do the axis of rotation right here. So I'm snapping to that point, and then I'll just do my rotation. So negative 0.75, 7/10 of a degree, so it's really not much. And then we'll do a second move operation. So I'll press M. Again, we'll select this body. In this case, it really doesn't matter where we do it from, but let's go ahead and do it from the same point. We don't want bodies, we want components here. Now, actually, I think I kind of screwed myself here, because now if I move this up, I'll be moving on that slight angle. So I'm going to undo back to where we just have the axis drawn, and I haven't done the rotation. Let me make sure we're at that point. Okay, so I'm going to go back to move, select components, select our body, our neck component, and move this straight up and type in 1/16. Let's look at it from the side and make sure I moved it in the right direction. So that is slightly above our body, which is right here. Okay, so now that axis came along with us, but that's fine. So we're going to rotate from this point. So M, and now we put our triad right on that center point and rotate it up minus 0.75 degrees. Okay, so now we've done the modification to the position on the neck. And you can see up here in our toolbar, I can capture that position. So that's going to finalize this move. This would revert it back to, its original state. So I'm going to finalize that. And you notice that there's nothing in the timeline here. When you move components around, it's going to be in the main timeline. So here is the actual capture of that move. One thing I did notice in doing this, if I right-click on this and I want to edit it, I really can't edit it. There's nothing here to edit. So unfortunately, if you change the angle or change the distance of the neck above the body in the future, you're basically going to have to delete this move and do another move. You can rewind the timeline back to this position and successfully move or edit the move of this neck, but you're not going to be able to just edit the feature the way you can in most features. So that's kind of unfortunate, but that's the way it is. Okay, so let's take a look at this. I'm going to hide all the sketches here. And let's see, we have some body sketches on too, so I'll hide those. And so if we look at this from the side here, you can see that the neck does protrude above the body and it is at a slight angle. So that's what we wanted before proceeding here. All right, now we should have a scale. Let's turn on our neck sketches. and we have a scale that also rotated and translated with us. So that's still at the top of the neck, even though the neck's not in its initial position anymore. Okay, so next I want to actually cut away part of this top of the neck, because this is also a pickup cavity right here. So I'm going to push that down 7/8 of an inch so that we have clearance for pickups. Okay, so in order to do that, I need a line to be able to do an extrusion here. And I figured out on my guitar, from this 24th fret, there's a 1/4 inch of fretboard, and after that, this neck gets cut away for the pickup. So I need a sketch to do that. Make sure we're in the neck component, so the sketch gets located in there. And we want the scale on because we want that 24th fret right there. So I'm going to create a sketch, click on the top of the neck. Let's rotate it up here. Well, we can't because we're not quite at a flat plane here. So we'll work in this direction. So I'll hit L for line, and I want a vertical line here. And then I'm going to press escape and press D for dimension and click on the 24th fret and the new line and type in 0.25. So that's a 1/4 of an inch. And now we still can't extrude here. So what we need to do is do a project to get these edges in the sketch that we have. So I hit P for project, and I'm just going to click on the top of the neck. So I'm going to get all that neck geometry. And now you can see as I hover over this, I can select this face right here, and then we're going to extrude that downward. Okay, so I'm going to hit E for extrude and click on the surface and push it down. And Fusion figures out that this is probably a cut, so it set this to cut. And I'm just simply going to type in, I'm going to keep the minus, but type in 7/8 of an inch. And that pushes that down, essentially making the start of a pickup cavity. So that's what the neck really looks like inside there. All right, so next up, we're going to do the truss rod slot. Okay, so I don't think we do still want our center line here. First off, let's name this sketch. So we'll call this pickup cut. All right, and now let's make a sketch for the truss rod and extrude that. So let's see where we stand here. All right, so we'll make a new sketch, again on top of the neck. And now we're going to do our geometry here. So I looked up on StuMac's site and found a truss rod that I want to use, which is an 18-inch that's got a 1/4 inch Allen end to it. So now it's a matter of figuring out where to put it, and kind of messing around with this physically, I came up with, I'm going to have 17.5 inches inside the neck proper, and then a 1/2 inch sticking out into the headstock. So I'm going to create a sketch, and I'm going to put it on top of this neck and basically get a profile that we can extrude to create our slot for the truss rod. So I'm going to go up to create sketch, click on the top of the neck, and first off, I want to start my line right here at the headstock neck transition point. So if I hit L, I've got nothing to snap to there. So I have to project in that line. So I'm going to hit P for project, select that line, and do an OK. And now if I hit L for line, I indeed can intersect with it. So I'm just going to start with a 0-degree line here, horizontal line, and type in 17.5 for its length. And I'm going to click on the line, do a Control-C and a Control-V. So I made a copy of the line, And then I'm just going to move it vertically so it continues to intersect this transition point here, and do an OK. Okay, so we have two lines which are going to be our truss rod slot. So if I hit D for dimension and click on those two lines, and I can click again and put in the width of that, which is 7/32. Okay, so here's our slot, but it is not centered on the center line. So one trick I use here is to do a dimension from one of these lines to the center line, and then click, and instead of typing in a number here, I'm going to go to the slot width and divide that by 2. So I just clicked on that other dimension, and now I have a formula in here which is half of that dimension. So that's centered both lines. Okay, so now we want to also do a slot that is a little bit wider in the headstock area to give enough clearance to put an Allen wrench in there. So same thing, I'm going to start on this transition line, and I want to make sure that I'm at, horizontal line, and this distance is going to be 1.5, and move this dimension up here. So I'll click on this, do the same thing, Control C, Control V, copy the other side down. Okay. And then set a distance between the two. And this distance is going to be 3/16. No, let's make that 3/8. 3/16 was, well, I don't know what 3/16 was. All right, we'll make that 3/8. Okay, and we'll do the same centering trick. So D for dimension, from here to the center line, click, and I'm going to click on this 3/8 dimension, and then divide that by 2. Okay, so both lines are centered there. And then I'm going to do a final line that connects these points here. So I can select this profile, and down on that side I also did that. So I think we can be done with the sketch now. And we can actually hide the scale. And now, let's see, when we hover here, we did have in our sketch, we projected this center line. Let's see if we delete it now, what happens. Okay. I'm not sure if I'm not sure what happened when I deleted that. So my point here is that we're going to have to do 4 selections here for this extrude, because this is not a construction line. And it got projected in from another sketch, so I don't believe that this can be changed to a construction line. We can give it one shot here. Let's right click and edit the sketch, and let's see, everything else is hidden. So I'm going to click on that projected line, hit X, and it is not changing to construction geometry. So unfortunately we're going to have to do multiple selects. All right, so I'll stop babbling here, and I'll actually cut this truss rod slot. So E for extrude, and we're going to select our profile. So here's one, there's a second one here, and then the 2 sides here. So if I hide the bodies, you can see that a little bit better. There's our selected profile. All right, let's turn the bodies back on, because we're actually going to be cutting those. And the depth that we want to go to, actually there's 2 different depths here. So I'm going to unselect everything. I'm going to select just the slot over the neck. So 2 selections there. And I'm going to push this downward, and I think Fusion's going to figure out that this is going to be a cut. Yep, it changed it to cut. All right. And this depth is going to be 7/16. So in the distance here, I keep the negative and put in 7/16. Okay. So that slot is cut. Now we want to cut this slot. So I'm going to do another extrude. So type in E, pick these two sides and push this down, and this is going to be a ½ inch deep. So minus 0.5. Okay. All right. So there is the truss rod slot, including a bigger slot that's in the headstock.